So we have 3 graduates from this online post-bac program. A few years back, they were in the same position as you are. They were sitting at that end of the room. And here they are back now. They are gainfully employed. They are doing fun stuff to share their experiences on how it was through this program and what they've been doing after that. So I'd like to just mention their names and then pass on the mic to them. They'll introduce themselves and give their background. So Justin Ihara, Vaughn Schmidt, and Joshua Urlaub. So let's start with Vaughn.
Hi, I'm Vaughn. I guess just a starting point for me, I listened to some of your introductions, so I'll do somewhat the same. I did my first undergrad in mechanical engineering at Clemson many years ago, and did some mechanical engineering, and always ended up somehow in the IT and programming and hacking stuff at work, and decided I wanted to get more formal training. So I found the the OSU program in computer science, and went back and started January 2014. I did my first class and graduated in June of this year. I actually came and walked graduation in Corvallis, which is kind of neat. I came to my first event here in Portland, I guess the summer one, 2014, and met Garmin initially, but I was very early in the program and came back in December. Spent more time with Garmin and kind of bugged them, and they said, well, we do internships and keep your eye open on our job board. And I went back. I'm actually from South Carolina, so I went back home and started watching the job board and started applying for internships and whatnot. And I also started applying at other companies, mainly here in the Pacific Northwest, just because that's the companies that seem to be attracted to the program. And Garmin put up a full-time software engineer, and I applied to that, and it was before I graduated. And they called and did a phone interview, and the recruiter said, I really appreciate you applying, but I want to tell you, we just don't hire people before they graduate. And I said, well, that's fine with me, and just keep my name on file. And I went to bed that night, and I woke up in the morning. I said, actually, that's not fine. I emailed her back. I said, look, I'm working a full-time job now. I'm taking classes. Garmin, I knew my focus was going to be on C and C++. So my later classes, the classes I have left to complete, aren't going to help me any at Garmin so much. The web dev and the mobile and all that. And I sent her, I guess, a persuasive letter back. And she called back and said, "You're sure about this?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." So they flew me out for a on-campus interview. So I did a day at Garmin, interviewed with about 5 different people throughout the day, and everybody interviewed with said, "We just don't hire people before they graduate." Every single one of them said, nothing personal, but it's just not something that we do as our company culture. We want you to have your diploma. We don't want to get in the way of you getting your diploma. And I gave my same explanation back to everybody. And later that night, I got a text that I'd have a job offer forthcoming. And 2 weeks later, I was out here in Salem. So I've done that, and I loaded a U-Haul, drove across the country, and left my family. And but they're out here now, so just to make sure. But yeah, so I finished my last term at Oregon State, 3 classes, starting a new job, and all in the same 2 or 3 months. So that was pretty intense. I've been real happy with the work I'm doing at Garmin. It is very much what I learned in the program, especially the C and the core classes. Discrete structures has helped a lot. We get into a lot of really gnarly logic problems, and so I've been working 9 months now. I think I'm now a contributing member to my team. I didn't feel that way about month 2, month 3. I felt like I was maybe holding them back a little bit more because they were spending so much time getting me up to speed. But now I do feel like I'm contributing. I'm writing good code. Your code gets better if you code 8 hours a day, you get better in a hurry. So I guess I'll pass the mic with that. But
hello, my name is Joshua Urlaub. I was a psychology student, so some of you are just where I was a couple years ago. I started with the first cohort, so to speak, June, 2013, I think. Maybe I'm wrong on the date. I can't remember. It's been a blur. Here's the thing. This is worth it. This is fantastic. I used to, so I was a psychology degree. I got a job working in a security department while I was in school. I moved up and basically became the director of security at that school. And at some point I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. This is not awesome. So I looked around, found this program, started the classes, knew that this was what I wanted to do. And I jumped in both feet. I asked to be switched to the IT department. That happened right around the same times we have the database class, which was fantastic because I moved into the database group. And from there, I was on basically the 1-year track and couldn't quite make it working full time, having a family. And 1 year, I wasn't getting much sleep, so I had to push it back, especially around operating systems. That class blew my mind. So right around that time, I had to drop down, and so I ended up on the 1.25 track. So we actually moved to Corvallis just to get on campus and get closer to what was going on and in the region. So we moved around spring, the spring break, and so we moved on campus. We did all this stuff. And I'm completing the whole classes. So eventually what happened is I graduated. That's great. I started interviewing for jobs, got various interviews on the phone, technical interviews, got a few on-site interviews. And eventually we had to move out because on-campus housing terminates right after a certain point. And so we're actually on our way out. I get an on-campus interview at HP in Vancouver, and I tell them, hey, I have to do it like tomorrow because I'm leaving the state. And they basically put me in tomorrow. I get the on-campus interview, and they talk through the whole day. And then I leave, and I'm in the middle of Nebraska going to Illinois, and they call me and say, hey, we got a job for you. And that was kind of what happened. So kind of turned around came back. It's great. So I've been there for about 2 years now, 2 years and a month. And it's been a really good experience, so it's worth it. It's hard. It's worth it.
Good morning. My name is Justin. I was actually in the same cohort as Josh. Started in, I think it was 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, 2012. It was a lot of work, so years kind of passed by. We actually were in the same group in a lot of our classes, and you were in Minnesota,
yes.
Right? Yeah, so he was in Minnesota, and I was living in Oregon, and so that was kind of a challenge in and of itself, but, we worked a lot together. I know that was a question that somebody else had. How do you kind of work between states? And we were working across time zones. And it was interesting, we were working with Google Hangouts. So we'd have a group of us. One of our group members was down in California. 2 of us were in Oregon, and then Josh was over in Minnesota. So, we would all be working in a group in Google Hangout. And then it was weird. We actually came to one of these conferences, and we all got to meet together for the first time in real life. And the weird thing is it didn't feel that much different. I mean, they had a rest of their body, but other than that, it was pretty good. So my experience, I work for MSCI, which is Microsystems Engineering. It's part of a conglomerate with Biotronic, so we create implantable medical devices, so like pacemakers, internal automated defibrillators. We also do stents and leads, et cetera. So my experience was going through the program, starting with the first cohort. I was on the year track. I interviewed in the spring with several companies. MSCI decided to snatch me up. And the interesting thing was I actually wasn't even interviewing with the department I landed in. They had set up kind of group interviews, and I went to several different departments and interviewed with them. And then there was kind of a company mixer at the end in which the interviewees would just go and talk to random people, and someone else decided that they wanted me in their group. So fortunately, that was a good move because I ended in the exciting side of things. So now I get to work not only on the software side of things, but also on the hardware side of things. So I work from the top down. So we have really large databases that are collecting information about manufacturing. We have systems that are controlling that manufacturing. And then the project I'm currently working on is working with a software system that I'm developing, actually, with some people over from Germany that actually is taking information from these databases and real-time information that's being transmitted from the machines that are performing this work. And then it's doing a whole bunch of logic and coming up with basically solutions and telling the machines what to do and then what other information to push out. So it's really quite fun to do, and I love what I do.